I was really worried that having a prior C-section would make deep lip reconstruction impossible for me. After researching and finding all these things on the internet telling me if you had a C-section that you couldn't do deep lap surgery. And so today we're going to dive into my experience. And I want to preface this by saying this is my experience and I'm not a doctor. So always make sure and talk with your surgeon because that's, the ultimate decision maker is your plastic or breast surgeon. So, I wanted to start back at the beginning. I know I have a few videos on deep lap surgery, but I did want to start back at the beginning because I know some of my questions are very prominent questions that a lot of women have. And so I did want to go back to the beginning, like I said, and make sure and touch on those questions. So today we're going to talk about C-section and deep lap, and if you can have deep lap surgery after having C-sections. So in my case, my C-section was just a vertical type C-section, okay? But briefly explain why people wonder this because of the surgeries involved the abdomen. Okay, so the reason this question arises, obviously, is because both surgeries, I'm assuming if you're here, you know what a C-section is. Both surgeries involve the abdomen. And for deep lap surgery, you don't need the muscle, but you need the tissue and you need a good, juicy blood vessel to also move with that tissue. So obviously both surgeries, which is deep lap surgery and C-section, involve cutting the abdomen or vertically. There were C-sections back in the day that were done, vertically on your abdomen. So that's one reason why this question arises. And then also because we've all looked up on Google if I can I have a deep lap surgery if I've had a C-section? And the answers we get are usually, well, it depends, and so they're not, obviously somebody's not going to come out and tell you yes or no, which I've had people tell me, no, it's not possible. But they're not going to come out and tell you, yes, it is possible either, because they don't want to get your hopes up either at the same time. But I'm going to give you this information. That way, maybe it'll give you some hope, for your scenario. Because I didn't get this information when I was going through this. I only got the bad part of the information. So, like I said, the reason why this arises is because both of them involve the abdomen. And, I would say, you see me looking down at my notes. I don't want to go off on a tangent here and we get all off base. So, let's see. Okay, so yes. They need, like I said, a big juicy blood vessel to use. And sometimes it truly depends on how high, for one thing, your scar is. So how high your scar is up on your abdomen. How much they had to cut and how well that surgeon was when doing your C-section. Okay, did they just slice you open, and yes, baby. One second. So, like I was saying, sometimes your OB-GYN will inadvertently cut that tissue in a way that is not usable for deep flap surgery. And so that's why we kind of get the response of, no, it's not possible, because they do slice that, even with a horizontal incision, they do slice that tissue. So it depends on how high up they cut that. I'm trying to think. I think mine is like, I don't think I have that C-section scar anymore after deep flap surgery. So I'm pretty sure they cut my surgeon. My surgeon told me they, with my scar. Okay, babe. My surgeon told me with my scar. Hey, back door, baby, so she doesn't go out the front. My surgeon told me with my particular scar, it was low enough. So let's say this is your abdomen right here. Okay, so your abdomen is this part, right? And your scar is down here. Okay, this is your scar. They can use all that tissue above that scar. So if your scar, if your scar is high up here, they might not be able to use this tissue around this area. I need to do a better depiction of that, but I probably get the drift. I'm just gonna want to make sure. Everybody understands what I'm saying. So this is gonna be a horrible picture too, guys. Just letting y'all know, I'm not an artist. This is why I'm going into informational, because I'm not an artist. Okay, so let's say your scar is here. This is the scar. And it's probably going to be turned around because it's inverted. Oh, it's not. That's cool. Okay, so your stomach is, obviously this is the stomach. And then your scar is here. So they can use all this area above the stomach. Okay? So in my case, what they did was they got all of this, okay, and then they cut it in half, okay, and they used half of this for one breast, and then the other half, I'm not doing a very good job, and then they used the other half for the other breast, okay, and then this part, so since this part is no longer here, okay, so they've used all this area for surgery, right? Or for the DIEP flap. So then they grab this area and they pull it down. Try to do this. They grab this area and then they pull it down. I gotta be by the microphone so y'all can hear me. So that's stretched downwards, okay? And I'm sure y'all know this, but we're just going over it just to make sure. So, if your scar is high up, so let's say your scar is here. I need to do a new drawing. So if your scar is too far up, they might not have any area above that to use, but they also might. You might be a person that has a very long torso, and there's a lot of, area that they could use, but also the medical world is ever changing, okay, guys? So Always talk with your breast surgeon or your plastic surgeon, even your oncologist. They know the things that are ever changing, and they know generally what can be advised. Um, so don't take this 100% from me and go, oh well, she said, so I'm not eligible. No, okay, because DIEP surgery is one of the things that is probably the best. I don't want to say the best because I know there are people out there that have implants. And honestly, I had no problem with implants. Just want to let y'all know, preface this by saying I have a small implant actually behind my deep flap. So I have no problem with implants. The problem I had that was with implants was that it was going to show through my skin because, I wasn't going to have any remaining tissue in their breast tissue at all because, during a double mastectomy, they take everything. And on one side, they actually had to take a lot of skin. Sorry, I have hair on me. One side, they had to take a lot of skin too, not just the tissue. So that was my only issue with implants was that it would be visible. Wearing a swimsuit, those lines would be visible, and so I wanted something to cover that. And the DIEP flap did that for me. It covered the implant, the small implant. It was 125 cc that they put behind my DIEP flap, so it was a very small implant. And I have no problem getting a bigger implant, honestly. But my surgeon said with my radiation that she wasn't able to get anything bigger underneath my skin because, radiation skin, that's another topic for another video, but radiation skin is not malleable. It doesn't move. So maybe further down the road, after I get more movement in there and more stretching in there, I can maybe possibly think about doing a little bit bigger implant. Anyway, just wanted to say that was my only problem with implants was that it was very visible underneath mastectomy skin. So where were we? So if your incision is a little bit higher, sometimes it's not possible just because that tissue has been cut and they need all the viable tissue in there, vessels in there, and they would prefer that it didn't already have surgery on it. So if you don't have C-section, that's better because obviously they don't want that tissue cut at all because they want to be able to fix it the way they want to, okay? Because since DIEP flap surgeons are microsurgeons, they are very careful with how they do the surgeries. OB-GYNs are not microsurgeons. They are just looking to get that baby out safely, okay? And so sometimes that means cutting viable skin that can later on be used, if you're, God forbid, diagnosed with cancer. And obviously, the majority of the time, they don't know that when they're cutting your skin for a C-section. They don't know that later on down the road you're going to need. And honestly, they don't care. They, like I said, they just want to get that baby out safely, okay? And sometimes that entails inadvertently cutting that tissue that is needed for DIEP flap surgery. And then the other thing is a vertical C-section that they used to do back in the day, which is something that is not done now. I don't think I have met one doctor, one OB-GYN that does that anymore. But I'm not exactly 100% sure on why they can't use both sides of that tissue. I don't know. Like I said, that's why it's always best to talk with your own surgeon, your own plastic surgeon, because sometimes there are ways around it. There are things that they can do depending on the patient. So, like I said, mine was low enough to be able to do DIEP flap surgery. They had no issue. So the question of can you get DIEP flap surgery done when you've had a C-section or multiple C-sections? The answer is yes. Yes, it is possible. So I just wanted to reassure anybody. Most of the time, even if adjustments are needed, reconstruction is still possible. Okay, it's always there's always a possibility for reconstruction. And on this channel, I dive into anything having to do with reconstruction, specifically deep lap reconstruction. But next time we are going to go over all the ways that you can have breast reconstruction. So make sure you leave a comment. Let me know down below if you've had deep lap reconstruction, if you're considering deep lap reconstruction. I would love to know. She's in the restroom. Will you please go grab her or check on her? Okay, so I have 5 children. So it's very hard for me to get videos out. So I apologize if I am not getting them out quick enough. But I try to get on here as much as possible. And I also have an Instagram if y'all would like to go over there and give me a follow. It's strong.roots.mama. And that's on Instagram or here on YouTube, which is Strong Roots at Strong Roots Mama. But if this information has been helpful at all, please give me a like and follow me here for more information and hopefully more hope for you. Thank you for being here. I will see y'all next time.